All right, so I've got about 40 minutes. I've got about 40 minutes to record this because I'm recording this during my lunch break. I've got a hard stop at 2 p.m. UK time. I've got a hard stop, guys. I've got a hard stop. I've got a customer meet. I've got a customer meeting at 2 o'clock, so I'm recording this during my lunch break. So yeah, I can't be sat here talking to you lot and be late for a customer meeting. My customer's gonna be sat there in his Teams meeting saying, "Where is he? Why is he not here?" So you don't even talk like that, to be honest. But yeah, so I've got to be quick, right? So this is the second episode of the Battle Camp Weekly. And I recorded my first one last week. I quite enjoyed it because it's a different format to what I usually do. I usually record one video on a specific subject or topic when it comes to MMA or boxing. But this allows me to go a little bit longer and just talk about a variety of different things. Actually, this last week's show did really well on podcast platforms. I got a lot more downloads than I usually get. So maybe because it was longer, it kind of enticed more people to download it. But yeah, if you're not already, please subscribe to this on your favorite podcast platform. That's enough of the plugging. So let's get straight into what we're here to talk about. MMA and boxing. So for me, the biggest story of the week is Conor McGregor against Dana White / the UFC. So this battle has been going on for a couple of weeks or a couple of months now, but it's kind of intensified over the last couple of weeks. And if I'm honest with you, last week after I recorded the show, I spoke about this a little bit last week, and as soon as I uploaded the video onto YouTube, what I was saying was kind of out of date, because at that's exactly when Dana White kind of announced that that he had offered Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor a fight in January. And I was actually going to record this last night, but I held fire. And the reason I held fire is because I saw Brett Okamoto tweet that he had spoken to Dana White, and Dana White had basically said no to Conor McGregor's request or demand that the fight with Dustin Poirier happens this year. And his reasoning behind that is basically saying, look, we've got 4 title fights booked for the shows in November and December. We're not going to move them to accommodate Conor McGregor. The date we've offered is January, and that's what it's going to be. And I knew Conor McGregor was going to respond to that, so I thought, let me wait and see what Conor McGregor says before I start talking about it. And just as I thought, he did respond. Do you know what I mean? It's just like clockwork sort of thing. And he responded, and his response kind of surprised me, and it didn't at the same time. And I'll tell you why. So, you know what? Let's pull up the actual response so I can dissect it. I actually posted about this on my Instagram account, which you can also follow. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And it's just at the Battle Camp. While I get this, I should have really pulled this up before because I can't remember off the top of my head, obviously, what he said. But I can get this up for you guys because, you know what? I'm not going to lie to you, yeah? What I wrote on my Instagram about, you know, this response, I feel like I kind of captured it quite well. And I can't remember verbatim what I said, so I'm going to try and rehash that original kind of caption that I used on this. So this is what Conor McGregor, where is it? This is what he said. I accept Jan 23rd is on. My goal is to see this fight take place in Cowboy Stadium proper style. Jerry Jones is a friend and the stadium can hold our crowd. I'll be ready for Texas and Texas will be ready for the fans. Then Manny. Hashtag McGregor Sports and Entertainment. So look, He's budged on his demands of this fight has to happen in 2020. He's now saying he's happy to fight in on January 23rd. But with that comes the condition that this fight, he wants this fight to happen in this Dallas stadium, right? But we have to point out. He goes, my goal is to see this fight take place. He didn't say I'm only going to accept January 23rd if the fight happens in this stadium. He said, my goal is to see it happen then, which is it's less of a demand, it's more of a request. Do you know what I mean? Now, with that being said, Dana White has been very vocal. He's been very vocal about his desire to see fans return to live events, basically. And I know, I've seen online that they've been having fans attend American football games at this very stadium. And I don't know how many, like, say it holds 80 or 90,000 people. I don't know how many people it holds. But I saw someone tweet, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw someone tweet that the attendance is capped at like 23,000 or something, so to allow for social distancing and all of that stuff. Which basically means holding this fight at this stadium allows for fans to attend. Now, when this COVID stuff first happened, one of the things that Dana White said is, we're going to be the first to have events, which he basically was. And he said, we'll be the first to have fans back in attendance. Now, that hasn't happened, and the nature of the sport hasn't allowed for it to happen, because these events happen indoors and they're not in big spacious arenas where, you know, you can allow for social distancing, etc., etc. Plus, they've been holding it in Abu Dhabi and, you know, Vegas in the performance center. So that isn't really big enough to invite fans to attend. This stadium here would allow that, you'd think, right? So now we come to a crossroads when it comes to this negotiation, because how will this request by Conor McGregor be received by Dana White and the UFC? Will he think to himself, you know what, he's actually talking sense. This fight will sell 20,000 tickets, no problem, in that arena. It will allow us to earn money with a live gate, and it allows us to bring fans back to a live event. Or will he double down on the fact that, no, we're only using the PI and we're only using Abu Dhabi as locations for our events? Will he say, oh, well, why are we going to move everything and go through the logistical problems that we might encounter by going to Dallas to have this event in January, when we've got, I don't know, a number of shows lined up for January? Look, we can probably check this. I'm pretty sure I have got a list of events. So what have we got in January? We've got, so they've been offered the January date in, I think it's the 23rd, right? And it's a date that it's not actually in the schedule. So it's a brand new date that they've offered Conor McGregor specifically for this fight, right? So you've got to commend them for that. But according to the schedule, they've got 2 events in January so far. One on the 30th, one on the 16th. So that's either side of the 23rd. So will that allow for them to go to Dallas, have the show in, you'd assume in Vegas on the 16th, go to Dallas on the 23rd and come back on the 30th? All of the logistical stuff aside, like I said in my post on Instagram, there's a thin line between a negotiation and a dick swinging contest. And I don't know whether we've crossed that line when it comes to Dana White and Conor McGregor. So I don't know whether this request by Conor McGregor will be received as, well, you're trying to throw your weight around again. Nah, we'll do the fight where I say we're going to do the fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, one thing I have to say is, and one thing, it doesn't happen often, but I agree with Dana White. Like, firstly, I was saying myself in my last video that why can't they just move some of these title fights in November and December and accommodate Conor McGregor because he's a star, etc., etc. Now, I didn't realise, and the reason I didn't realise, and we'll come on to it later, at the time when I was saying it, they didn't have 2 title fights booked on both shows. So that's the first thing. So they've basically got 4 title fights that they would have had to rearrange, shift around and stuff like that. But the other thing that I said, but I didn't really see from Dana White's point of view is, although Conor McGregor did announce his retirement on social media at the time a few months ago, he was openly negotiating with the UFC and Dana White at that time for his next fight, right? And I was like, well, the UFC knew he wasn't really retired. But I didn't see from Dana White's point of view that, hold on a minute, why do you keep doing these fake retirements? It's so childish. And I can appreciate from his point of view how annoying it must be, right? So if Conor McGregor is retired, he's taken out at face value. So they've gone ahead and planned the rest of the year without Conor McGregor because he's, retired. Do you know what I mean? So you can't keep throwing your toys out the pram and telling the world that you're retired, but still expect preferential treatment at the drop of a hat on your whim. So I appreciate Dana White's position on that front. Also, I heard Daniel Cormier say, like, how much does Conor McGregor actually want to fight if he's willing to not fight over the difference of a month? He's saying he wants to fight in November or December. The UFC have offered him January. It's 1 month, difference between December and January. Like, if he actually really, really wanted to fight, they've offered him the opponent he wants, and they've said, we can't do December, but we can do January. We've given you your own date. We've made a date for you to fight on. Does he actually want to fight if that's the reason? he says, no, I have to fight in November or December. And if he really has to fight so badly, what other options has he got? He's under contract with the UFC. He doesn't have any other options. Do you know what I mean? But going back to the fact that he's accepted this offer of January 23rd, but it comes with the caveats of, I'd like to see it in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. I can see that being a stumbling block in the negotiation. But the fact that he's already budged on the dates, and he hasn't said this fight has to be in the stadium. He said he'd like to, or his goal is to have it there. I'm sure there's room to maneuver with that little thing. I just want to quickly mention, you can see Dana White getting pissed off with that tweet for for the way he ended it. He basically he had to get the last word in, basically, by saying Texas, I will be ready for Texas, and Texas will be ready for my fans. Then Manny. So he's not letting go of this, desire to fight Manny Pacquiao. I don't know how realistic it is. I know Manny Pacquiao announced that he's made it official that he's being represented by Paradigm Sports Management, who's the same management company that represents Conor McGregor. But I don't get it, because I'm pretty sure there was an announcement. This same announcement happened like months ago. I even made a video about it. I even took the piss out of that Adi Attar's shirt during that picture they took when they were shaking hands and stuff. So I don't know what the difference is. I thought all along he was represented by them. But I suppose the point I'm trying to make is, from an internal point of view, it makes it easier for this fight to happen if the same management group is managing both Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor. The last hurdle would be getting around Conor McGregor's contract with the UFC. But I can see that pissing Dana off, then Manny. And then at the end, the hashtag McGregor Sports and Entertainment. He's showing like with every single tweet that he does, he's enforcing the message that he's his own boss and he doesn't work for the UFC and he's like a partner of the UFC and he's got his own promotional outfit. That's what he's focused on. Do you know what I mean? So I can see that annoying Dana White. But one thing about Dana White is you can say whatever you want about him. You can hate him as much as you want to hate him. But he doesn't let he's got an ego. He's got an ego, don't get me wrong. But when something is good for business, he has the ability to put his ego to the side. And having this fight in January is good for business. And it will be good for business if they are able to have it in this stadium with 20,000, 24, 25,000 fans that are paying for the privilege of watching the fight live. Not just from a financial point of view, but just from the aesthetics. Do you know what I mean? Finally having fans back in the stage, back in the arena, watching live fights. That's the end goal in it. That's what we all want to see. But, no doubt this will develop over the next week or so. Dustin Poirier seems to be up for it. He's back in Florida, wherever it is, ATT. Is he ATT? American Top Team. Yeah, it's ATT. He's back in Florida training, so he's expecting, or he thinks there will be movement. So let's see. It's now just a waiting game. But yeah, all right, so that's that covered. The next thing I want to talk about is it's official. Finally, Aljamain Sterling has got his title shot against Petr Yan, I think is the right way to pronounce it. And it's happening in December. Let's open up the tab to see exactly when that fight is going down. December the 12th. So this has been going on for ages, isn't it? And the UFC hadn't announced this. Like, I remember Dana White saying during a press conference, and I can't remember what event it was after or when he said it, but he did say, Aljo is the next guy. He's the next guy. And then there was no announcement. And then I saw Aljamain Sterling talking on his podcast, The Weekly Scraps, I think it's called. And he was saying, what's going on? Like, why have I not been given this title shot? But this was just yesterday, and yesterday it got announced. So I don't know. Obviously, Aljamain Sterling knew this was in the works, but it just wasn't official. Do you know what I mean? So it's been booked for December 12th. There is nobody more deserving in that division than Aljamain Sterling for a title shot. And there were rumblings that they were waiting to see if Marlon Moraes beats Corey Sandhagen. And there was rumblings that he could potentially take that title shot if he won that fight. But obviously that didn't happen. He got brutalized, really, didn't he? He got dominated in those 2 rounds the fight lasted. Corey Sandhagen probably with the best performance I've ever seen from him in the octagon. But yeah, so that put a kibosh on those rumours, because you can't give Marlon Moraes the title shot after losing in the manner in which he lost to Corey Sandhagen. And on top of that, you can't give Corey Sandhagen the title shot because he just got mauled by Aljamain Sterling in one round. Do you know what I mean? So there was literally only one option. There was one option, and I'm glad that the UFC have listened to the voice of reason, and this fight has finally been booked. So December 12th, we're going to see a double header. We're going to see Petr Yan against Aljamain Sterling for the bantamweight title. And then we will see Amanda Nunes. And I always forget Amanda Nunes' name for some reason, but today I didn't. We're going to see Amanda Nunes against Megan Anderson for the featherweight championship. So, yeah, we got 2 title fights on that card. Incidentally, they're going to have Amanda Nunes as the main event. And Aljamain Sterling against Petr Yan is the co-main event. For me personally, I would switch that around because... I just feel like it's just a bigger fight. Do you know what I mean? And this isn't about gender. It's just a bigger fight. I don't know. I mean, at featherweight in the women's division, it's so hard to come by kind of women that are that big and any good at MMA. And I just don't, I just don't know how much of a chance I give Megan Anderson against Amanda Nunes. But at the same time, I can appreciate just how good Amanda Nunes is because she's just miles ahead of her competition, and that should be celebrated. You know, when we have male champions that are just streets ahead of the competition, we revere that. So when it's a woman doing it, just because the opposition, aesthetically we can see that these women just aren't at the level, at that world kind of level sort of thing. And just because there's slim pickings in that division, it doesn't make Amanda Nunes any less brilliant. She's, arguably the best female that's ever done it when it comes to mixed martial arts. And we should celebrate that. And having her as the main event is an ode to the fact that she's just so good. But personally, obviously, I'm looking forward more to the Aljamain and Petr Yan fight. But it doesn't mean to say that should be the main event. That's just my personal opinion, and I can see why the UFC have decided not to switch them around. Let's just quickly talk a little bit about the Corey Sandhagen win against Marlon Moraes. So I didn't make a preview video for that fight, but I did, going into the fight, I did think Marlon Moraes was going to be a difficult task for Corey Sandhagen. But the thing that I thought would work in Corey Sandhagen's favour is the fact that it's 5 rounds, and I felt that he had the ability to control his pace and go the longer distance. Obviously, that didn't need to happen. Listening to a Corey Sandhagen interview with Luke Thomas, he did say that he felt that Marlon Moraes was already tiring after the first round, which is worrying for Marlon Moraes. I did think that because how accomplished and how clean Corey Sandhagen is technically standing up, that this would be a very difficult fight for Marlon Moraes, because I felt that he would struggle potentially to close the distance and to just hit Corey Sandhagen. But I thought Corey Sandhagen may struggle from confidence a little bit after what happened with Aljamain Sterling, and I felt that Marlon Moraes would carry some danger at least, but it just didn't happen. Corey Sandhagen dominated that fight and won it convincingly with a kick and the punches to finish it off as a TKO. So yeah, it was a good performance by Sandhagen, and he called out Frankie Edgar for some reason, and then he called out TJ Dillashaw, and that's a fight I'd like to see. I'd like to see TJ Dillashaw welcome back to the UFC by Corey Sandhagen. And I'm not sure when TJ Dillashaw's, why did I say it like that? TJ Dillashaw's due to return when his ban finishes, but I'm pretty sure it's early next year. So from a timing point of view, this works out brilliantly. So let's see what happens to Corey Sandhagen moving forward. Well, it's hard not to talk about it, but bloody hell, that KO, why can I not see it on here? Oh, here it is. Joaquin Buckley against Impa Kasangnai. I posted this on my Instagram as well. Follow me at the Battle Camp. I've said this twice now. But I posted this on my Instagram, and blimey, like I listened to Dana White in that same interview with Brett Okamoto, and he was talking about how viral that knockout went and how it's it's got the most impressions for a social media post by the UFC, and he was talking about the numbers. I can't remember. Go and watch that interview. But just a quick shout out, man. The way he executed that, how that fight finished. That fight, to be honest, was a fun fight, because I watched that live actually before I fell asleep. I watched that live, and that was a entertaining fight. And it's funny to say that the fight itself is kind of getting overshadowed by the finish, but obviously from Buckley's point of view, that's a good thing. He's already been booked to fight again in November, I believe. But that finish was crazy, man, and bloody hell, like he deserves. Apparently, he's got 60,000 new followers since that happened, which was last Saturday. It's now Thursday, so it just proves the power of the internet. But well done. Quick shout out to Tom Aspinall, another relatively straightforward win against Alan Baldo, I think you pronounce it. I think Tom Aspinall said he wasn't 100% happy with his performance. He could see areas that he needed to improve on. I think he was being a little bit hard on himself. I think he just done what he had to do. He beat the opposition in front of him quite convincingly in the first round, and he moves on. He's going to be a problem in that heavyweight division, man. I'd like to see who the UFC are gonna put him up against next. Let's look forward a little bit. Ortega against a Korean Zombie. I might make a separate video about this because I'm running out of time. I'm conscious of the time, and I just want to talk a little bit about this fight, because this fight got announced like 2 years ago. Might be exaggerating, 18 months ago, something like that. And then obviously there's been injuries and things like that, which has delayed it. And in that time, Brian Ortega slapped Lincoln Park, whatever his name is, J Park, whatever, I don't know, some Korean pop star or something, who happens to be Korean Zombie's mate. And the beef between them intensified. I just quickly want to talk a little bit about Ortega. So it feels like the internet has started to hate Ortega, and I don't know whether it's because of this slap to J Park. I don't know whether it's because the girls love him. Like he's like one of the he's like a pin-up when it comes to UFC fighters, and I don't know whether MMA Twitter dislike him because of that. I can't personally see a reason to hate the guy. Like, I liked him on his rise up the division. I liked him when he went in to fight Holloway. I liked him after he lost to Holloway. But I just feel, I might be wrong, it just might be my perception, it might just be what I see on the internet. It's not a true reflection of what's going on outside in the real world. But I just get the feeling that there's this level of kind of hate towards Ortega, and I just can't quite understand it, because he just seems like a stand-up nice guy, to be honest, and a guy who I really enjoy watching. I love the way he fights. I love the heart, I love the grit, I love the determination, and those are three words we can use to describe the Korean Zombie, and that's why this fight is so good. Like, I would be so excited about this fight if there was no needle, if there was no beef, but this little edge of beef just kind of puts a little cherry on the top of the cake, so yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight. Let's have a look at their records quickly. I just quickly want to talk about firstly, obviously, Brian Ortega. I listened to an interview he did with, who did he do with? Brett Okamoto? Oh no, it was his like pre-fight press conference thing, and he was talking about the changes that he's made in his camp. So obviously, after he lost to Holloway, he was saying that he was in the lift or the elevator, if you're American. Straight after the fight, I think he's going up to the hospital. I don't know where he's going. He was just in the lift. He's in an elevator. And that's the moment he kind of knew he needed to make changes in his camp. He spoke about knowing that kind of before the Holloway fight, but he didn't, because he was on a winning streak. So he thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So his whole team has changed. The only person that I believe has stayed in his corner is Rener Gracie. Now, Rener Gracie has tested positive for COVID, so Rener Gracie won't actually be in his corner come fight night. I don't know how much this will affect Brian Ortega. So I heard Daniel Cormier talk about this, and Daniel Cormier said, well, it shouldn't really affect him too much because his strongest suit when it comes to martial arts is BJJ, and Gracie is his jiu-jitsu coach. So if you're going to lose one of your coaches, it's best for it to be the guy that that coaches you in an area that you're strongest, right? It makes sense. That's a logical observation. The only thing that I'll say is, it's a bit kind of like when your whole camp has changed, right? All your training, all your kind of coaching staff has changed. The one guy that you kept on board, Henry Gracie, that's like a constant, you know? That's a guy that's known him from his first fight up until, you know, whatever fight of his this is. This is like his 13th fight, is it? 14th fight? Let's check. Brian Ortega, how many times has he fought? Yes, so this will be his 16th fight, I believe. Let me double check that. Sorry, this will be his 17th fight. So he's experienced, but his rise up that division was quite quick. And I don't know, there's something to be said about familiarity. And that corner of his will be all new faces. And I don't know if any of those faces have been in his corner in prior fights. So in terms of giving him direction or giving him tips on what you can do better during, in between rounds, fine. But getting into his head and saying the right words at the right time is something that I believe Henry Gracie knows how to do, just because he knows Ortega so well. Ortega's been coached by him since he was a kid, sort of thing. So I feel like that might be a big miss, especially if things aren't going his way during the fight. So that's something to keep an eye on. One thing that Brian Ortega says he's excited to show is the developments in his stand-up skills. So he's a guy that has always been ballsy when it comes to the stand-up game. A guy that maybe wasn't technically sound, but he had, again, heart, grit, determination, and he didn't mind getting involved in a war. Speaking of wars, Korean Zombie's a guy that lives and breathes wars. He even done military service. That's how much he loves wars. That's a shit joke. But obviously, look, he had a gap in his career because he had to go back to South Korea and do, military service and whatnot. So, but his fighting style, I think he's improved in the sense that I think he's improved his technical stand-up skills, and he's less open to taking a shot, to landing his own. He'd rather not take a shot but still land his own. Do you know what I mean? There's a much better, more concise technical way of saying that, but I hope you guys get what I'm trying to say. I don't know who's going to win this fight. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it because both of these guys are guys that don't wilt. They don't wilt under pressure. Like when they're put under pressure, they fight back. They run towards fires. And I honestly, I'm really excited about this. This is like in this new kind of phase of Fight Island fights. I'd say this is in the top 3 of the fights that I'm looking forward to the most. I'm really excited, and I can't even give you guys a prediction. But because that's what I do, I'll just say I think Ortega takes it. I can't even give you guys a sound, logical explanation as to why I'm making that prediction, because I think this is a very close fight. It might just be because I'm a fan of Ortega's. I don't know. But one thing that I quickly like to say is, in my head, I feel like Korean Zombie is like a youngster, like he's a young talent. But then I was looking through his fight record, and I was shocked because there's fights that I remember him, like a fight against Leonard Garcia. And who remembers Leonard Garcia, ex-champion WEC? Mark Hominick. He fought Dustin Poirier. Like, this was back in 2012. Do you know what I mean? And I think that gap in his career to do military service has actually done him some good, because would he still be fighting at this level without those two and a half years off? Like, if he carried on fighting during that period, would he have made the improvements that he's made, and would he still be able to technically fight at the level that he's currently operating at? Who knows? Maybe that gap actually done him some good, because at the time I was thinking, bloody hell, 2 years while he's in his prime. It'll be difficult to come back. But he's come back, and he's come back a better version of himself. So hats off to Korean Zombie. All right, I've got 8 minutes, so let's quickly talk about this. Last subject, a bit of boxing. Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury. So this conversation has been going on for a couple of months. So ever since the second fight, where Fury absolutely battered Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder's team immediately basically said, we're going to invoke the rematch clause. Since then, that was back in February, and obviously March, COVID started. But ever since then, it's kind of just been, very quiet from Deontay Wilder's end. And Tyson Fury has been, doing his fair share of interviews and talking and stuff like that. Cold coffee. But he's been, been quite vocal about wanting to get it on and wanting to get rid of this rematch that is, he's contracted to kind of have to fight, and he just wanted to get it over and done with. Now, over the last week or so, Frank Warren and Bob Arum, both Tyson Fury's promoters, have basically said, look, Deontay Wilder's team have not basically scheduled a fight. They were due to schedule the fight and they haven't done it. They've run out of time. So now contractually we aren't what's the right word? Contractually, we're not obliged to fight Deontay Wilder. So we're going to be looking for a different opponent in December, because Tyson Fury really wants to fight this year. Now that allows for a conversation to begin for Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua to fight each other next year, because Fury, you'd assume, will fight in December. AJ is due to fight in December. They'll both be fighting at a similar sort of time. It'll give them, the rest of the year off. Start training, in the first 3-4 months of next year. In theory, you can schedule a fight between them two for the unified heavyweight champion of the world. All of that stuff aside, I just quickly want to talk about Deontay Wilder. Now, I feel like this is the perfect storm for Deontay Wilder. I feel like it was a misstep by them immediately saying that they want the rematch with Tyson Fury, just because of the way he was comprehensively battered in that second fight. I feel like it was a move made listening to the ego rather than logic. So they didn't use their head and say, this might not be a good idea for us to fight Tyson Fury again. He basically outpointed us the first time around. We got away with a draw decision. The second time around, it was just conclusive. There wasn't a single moment in that fight that Deontay Wilder won. He got beaten. And what are they doing different? What can they do differently at this point in his career to allow him to have a better chance of beating Tyson Fury in a third fight? It's very difficult to see or say, this is an area we can look at. This is an area we can really improve on from a technical standpoint. And this is a game plan we can implement. And this will enable us to beat Tyson Fury. You saw Tyson Fury fight in two different styles in the first and second fight. And he basically outperformed Fury in both fights. So he can fight on the back foot. He can fight Wilder on the front foot, putting it on him. And in both scenarios, he beats Wilder. So I feel this is a bit of a blessing in disguise, because this whole COVID situation and how things have kind of delayed and kind of stuttered and stuff like that, it gives them a ready-made excuse as to why they weren't able to get this third fight over the line. At the same time, it allows them to avoid Tyson Fury, because it's a fight that he's very unlikely to win in a third fight. And I'm talking about Wilder when I say he's very unlikely to win. And it allows them to move forward and maybe fight a different opponent and take Deontay Wilder's career in a different direction without losing face, without people saying, oh, you bottled it. You chickened out of a fight with Tyson Fury. And I'm not saying that they're not making this fight happen because they're scared, because obviously there are financial implications. Obviously there are things that they need to take into consideration from a financial standpoint before they, say, all right, this is the date, this is where we're going to fight. The live gate is a big issue. I understand that. I appreciate that. But for one guy that was harping on about one face, one name, one champion, and just talking about how he is the only guy that really wants to be the undisputed champion, this is your first step back towards that goal, which you say is so important to you. And it's just convenient, isn't it? Oh, how convenient. It's just convenient that, it's not going to happen now. after you guys basically, you know, were so adamant that you're going to invoke the rematch clause. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where his career goes from here. But, I mean, if after all, the goal for Wilder was financial, like that was the main goal in terms of becoming a boxer, generational wealth and all of that. Like the offer that DAZN made before he fought Tyson Fury, was it for the second time? Yeah, before he took that fight. Like the DAZN made him a clear offer, and he spurned it, and that would have been the most money he would have made in terms of from that phase of his career moving forward. It was like an 80 million offer or something like that. I've talked about it before. I'm not going to talk about it again. But you get what I'm trying to say. Like, nothing really adds up. There's no logical way of tying up all of the moves that Deontay Wilder has made throughout his career with what he's said throughout his career. Does that make sense? So all of the stuff that he said along the way and then how he's actually acted, they're not the same. He doesn't walk the walk. He don't talk the talk. And that leads me to believe that all of these people that are fanboys of Deontay Wilder, it feels like they're a little bit quiet now. But yeah, I've run out of time. Someone's already joined that meeting I was on about earlier on, so I better go. Although he joined 4 minutes early. Who joins a virtual meeting 4 minutes early? Anyway, listen, if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend, comment on any of the things that I've talked about. Feel free to comment. I always respond to comments, genuine comments, and not just people swearing or cussing any of the fighters or whoever I've spoken about during the course of this video. So please pick your words wisely. But yeah, comment, share, subscribe to the platform, subscribe to the podcast on the podcast platform that you use. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.